Minister Starmer's visit to China has been a very successful visit. I think it will turn out to be a landmark visit, ushering in a more normal relations between China and Britain. Now, Britain used to be the British Empire. We know about that. And as an empire, it caused a lot of unpleasant things in China-British relations. That's also very well recorded in history. However, at this particular moment, I think both China and Britain need to look forward into the future. We should refuse to be hijacked by what happened in the past. We need to transcend the past and move into the future for mutual engagement, for mutual benefit. And in this spirit, I think while people say the golden era in China-British relations will never come back, being an optimist, allow me to emphasize that we may need to establish the new platinum era in China-British relations.
You're upgrading it from gold to platinum.
Yes, exactly. I think at this particular moment, Britain needs many things which China can really offer. For example, Britain needs foreign direct investment to create more jobs. Britain needs more manufacturing productions. Britain needs more power, for example, and Britain needs a better energy security paradigm. I think in all these important things, China can help. China can help in building up connectivity, including both expressways of all kinds and high-speed railway. So treat China as the very important, or almost the most important megatrend in the world of today for your own benefit.
Right. And do you think then that China should replace America when it comes to a special relationship for us?
I don't think so. The United States has its own role, and we all know that the Pax Americana is starting to fade away, especially after what the United States did to many countries, including what they did to Britain after dismissing what positive roles Britain had played in the war in Afghanistan. I think it is a very important turning point in history. And I think after Pax Americana, all of us need to prepare for Pax Zhonghua or Pax Sinica. So I think we need to realize that China is the most important megatrend. You dismiss China at your own peril and to your own disadvantage. With or without the United States.
Victor, sorry to interrupt, but that sounds a bit like a warning. That sounds a bit like a warning.
No, it's not a warning. It's I always believe a megatrend is not a warning. A megatrend is a very pragmatic, a very realistic assessment or prediction for something to come. And with or without the United States, I think China and Britain need to have all the incentives to improve their bilateral relations for mutual benefit.
Okay. But Victor, why, if we're going to be such great friends, why does the Prime Minister and his entourage have to throw away their normal cell phones when they travel to China and use burner phones because they're afraid of having their phones tapped? That's not a sign of friendship, is it?
Well, if they are worried about, for example, being espionaged against, that's not reflection of the realities in China. That reflects some kind of a very dark things going on in their own soul, at the bottom of their soul. They should be very confident about China. China is such a megatrend that China has all the confidence itself. I hope Britain, with its very important past, as well as the present role, as well as the future role to be played by Britain need to have enough confidence in itself rather than worrying its own head off for being espionaged by China.
Tim Lawton, who's also on the line, still has the sanctions hanging over him. Could you explain to him why that is?
Well, I hope he will do more to realize that China is a megatrend, not to be completely disregarded or dismissed or neglected. And he should say things which reflect the realities about China. And he should do things to promote the real fundamental interests of the British people by engaging with China rather than alienating China. China is a factor that if you alienate China, you alienate the fundamental interests of the British people. That's my very real, kind-hearted advice for His Excellency.
I want whatever Victor Gao's on, because he's in complete la-la land. And so much for a platinum era. I'm afraid there's severe metal fatigue in the relationship between China, not just the UK, but the rest of the West. I agree with Victor. You dismiss China at your peril. But that was rather a menacing phrase we had from Victor there, because China does matter. But I'm afraid it matters more for the negatives and the threats that it poses to the UK and the West than the opportunities that certainly under the current dictatorial regime offer to us in terms of investment and other trading opportunities. And the Prime Minister is on his jet, coming back on his burner jet. It wasn't just burner phones, they had to have burner laptops, and they couldn't even take the official government plane out there. He's coming back from China with pretty thin gruel, having frankly been rather humiliated. So in terms of this being a huge success and a turning point, goodness knows what Victor's been on.
Victor, I won't ask you what you've been on, but what do you make of Tim's response?
Tim, let me ask you one question. Tell me, what's your assessment? In what way does China threaten the fundamental interests of the British people? Tell me your true assessment.
How long have we got? You've
got another 4 minutes, guys. So you know,
the Intelligence and Security Committee of Parliament set out in very comprehensive terms the security threat that that China poses to the UK. We had to pass legislation, the National Security and Investment Act, to keep Chinese-sponsored companies out of infrastructure projects in the UK.
Rather than fantasy.
This isn't fantasy. Why is it that the Chinese governments have been caught red-handed with tapping phones in Number 10, spies in Parliament? The Chinese government has bounties,
real evidence.
a million
real evidence.
Okay,
Again, your dilution,
sir. Victor, let me speak. You had an awful lot to fantasize about. There's real evidence that Hong Kong citizens who've had to flee Hong Kong because China has completely shredded up the international treaty that handed over Hong Kong, absolutely no respect for international law. There are bounties of $1 million Hong Kong dollars on those people to be repatriated to China. People in this country, not just MPs, ex-MPs, Uyghurs and others, are being daily intimidated by the police stations which the Chinese government have set up in this country to drag in dissidents off the streets and beat them up. We know.
Let me say one
thing
in
all
response.
You may not like them, but that is the true face of China. China itself.
Let Victor respond to this ping pong.
Tim, let me tell you one thing. If you do not understand history, let me teach you some history. Britain had very extensive national security operation in Hong Kong before they left Hong Kong on June the 30th, 1997. This is the fact. If you do not know this fact, you can treat Victor Gao as your tutor. I know better than you do. Britain had extensive national security operation in Hong Kong. Therefore, after the handover, China absolutely has power and authority to engage in national security operations in Hong Kong, as the British Empire and the British Hong Kong government did before July the 1st, 1997.
We didn't shoot demonstrators, Victor.
British people.
Victor, we didn't shoot demonstrators. We didn't put bounties on the head of people overseas outside the territorial regime of China itself. Don't try and equate British rule over Hong Kong, which was a beacon of liberty entrepreneurialism, into what it's become now, where the rule of law has gone out of the window.
That's what
freedom of speech has gone out the window. People can't even demonstrate.
Authority in Hong Kong. They took over Hong Kong from Chinese ownership, and now you want to be an angel for your role in Hong Kong? Come on, Tim.
Okay, let me intervene, gentlemen, just for a second. One to you, Victor. Why, we're going to speak to Jimmy Lai's son, Sebastian, after the break. Why is Jimmy Lai, who's 78 years old and suffering from diabetes, who had the impertinence of having a newspaper that spoke its mind, why is he in jail?
Let me tell you why. Jimmy Lai colluded with foreign powers, tried to overthrow the authority of the People's Republic of China in Hong Kong. He wanted to overthrow the legitimate government of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region in Hong Kong. He wanted to create chaos in Hong Kong.
Okay.
Where's your evidence?
Than I do. He was working with CIA. Come on.
Oh, come on.
Absolute
Victor,
rubbish.
We're
You
now,
have no evidence.
so, okay, let me ask, let's move on swiftly. Another question, Victor, to you is this. We know what Britain wants out of China, which is direct investment. What does China actually want from Britain other than cheaper whiskey?
No, China needs from Britain nothing more, nothing less than equal treatment. Even though China is much bigger than Britain, China wants to have equal treatment by China in Britain and by Britain for China. That's the equal treatment. We deserve no more, no less. We need to get along with each other as completely equal partners, rather than Britain lecturing China or China lecturing Britain, like Tim wants to lecture me.
I want to have closer relationships with our EU partners. We have an awful lot in common. We don't need to be part of the EU to do that. I want better relations with the US as well. It is a very important trading relationship and very important diplomatic relationship. There are problems with it under President Trump now. But that is not a case for leaping into the arms of China, who I would love to be able to treat on equal terms as Victor wants. But they need to set aside the spying, the security threats that they pose to us. They need to allow us, if they want us to trade with Xinjiang, for example, then why aren't British government officials and others from Europe allowed to go into those factories to check that the cotton, the components, the solar panels are not being produced by slave labour, as we know that they are, and we have the evidence for it. Only when China surrenders itself to international laws and norms and standards that we all trade under can they possibly expect to be treated on an equal basis. And we are a long way away from that. And frankly, Victor needs to admit that.
All right, Victor, you've got 20 seconds, then we've got to wrap it up.
Yeah. Tim, don't mention slavery to China. China never practiced the slavery for the past 2,000 years.
It's
very
doing
different
it now.
from your country.
It's happening now,
so tell
Victor.
let me tell you, there is no slave in China, period. Don't fabricate facts about my country. There is no slave in China, period. Tim, if you claim there are slaves in China, you will never be allowed to enter China. That's my warning.
That's the problem.
Any.
That's the problem, because you're denying
don't expect
the
to come
truth.
to China.
You're
telling fabrications. You're telling falsehoods to mankind, and mankind refuse to be misled.
What about freedom of speech, Victor? Freedom of speech. Have you heard of freedom of speech?
You doesn't give you for just saying what I think.
To tell falsehood to mankind, to alienate relations between China and Britain. Your Prime Minister said, for 8 years, British leaders practiced the dereliction. You are practicing dereliction for preaching alienated the relations between China and Britain.
But I don't guarantee
that's the real problem.
All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up there.